Hello and welcome to The Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, where we go beyond the headlines to uncover the ideas, policies, and debates that shape your UPSC preparation. It's June 30th, 2026, and today's edition brings two forward looking themes that sit at the intersection of governance, economy, and sustainability for your mains 2026 preparation. We begin with why Delhi is going electric, exploring the policy push behind electric mobility, the challenges of urban pollution, and what India's EV transition means for energy security, manufacturing, and climate commitments. Next, we turn to an important question for India's next phase of development. What are reforms 2.0 for Bharat? To strengthen your answer writing, we also bring you a dedicated mains value addition segment featuring relevant data, committee recommendations, report, example, constitutional provisions, and case studies that can help you transform good answers into outstanding ones. And as always, we will be wrapping up the session with focused prelim pointers for your upcoming 2027 prelims examination. So let's begin. The first article of the day is based on the recent announcement of a major electric vehicle policy by the administration of Delhi, and this is one of the biggest models that all the major Indian states can follow for transition towards clean and greener energy. So this is exactly what we will be focusing on, because the Delhi EV policy 2.0 has been launched, and this is where it can be a model for other states to copy and emulate, because so far we have seen the central government, that is the government of India at the center, has innumerable EV policies, but sometimes the center will fall short, and that is where the states should pick up the pace of EV development, because at the end of the day, the vehicles and all other stakeholders are present at the state level, at the local level, and that is exactly why we have to concentrate on this topic, not on the very basic details of this EV 2.0 policy, because this is a state government initiatives, and UPSC sometimes do not actually ask state specific news or state specific government initiatives, but we will learn this. Why? Because we will understand, for example, if there is a question on how India can transition towards EV and a future which is based on the electronic vehicles, we can give the benefits and the incentives of this Delhi model in those kind of answers. So this will be the main focus of our discussion. We will be understanding why this policy came into the picture, because if you look, the percentage distribution of fuel categories by vehicle class, we will find that most of the vehicles in Delhi as of now, and we can generalize it for the rest of the country also approximately, that most of the vehicles are based on petroleum. Then we also have various other classes such as CNG. A meager amount of only 11%, right, is EV. Also, when we talk about some electric vehicles which are also hybrid in nature, for example, they can also work on petroleum and diesel. We also have those share of vehicles, but these are actually very, very small, right? And at the very beginning, we have to understand why we are trying to have this kind of policies in the very beginning, because the main core context is that 51% of the major forms of emission in Delhi and surrounding region actually come from vehicular emissions, based on the recent report which the CAQM published in the public media. Based on the data that we find from 2021 to 2025, we find that the percentage contribution from the transportation sector, basically during winter months and also from the summer months, is actually one of the highest. If you find transportation sector is actually at second highest contributor towards air pollution. The first is actually from secondary pollution, for example, from gaseous emissions, from transport, from industry. So we can actually understand, when we talk about one sector as a whole, transportation sector is actually even much more higher in contribution towards air pollution in Delhi, when we also compare it with industries in Delhi, biomass burning in Delhi. So we understand that vehicle is a major problem for the air pollution scenario in the country, especially during the winter months, when we also see the case of stubble burning, making the situation even worse. And that is exactly the Delhi government, the Delhi cabinet has come with this EV policy, and this is a very, very unique policy to be noted. Firstly, this will actually have a target year starting from 2026 to 2030 with a budget of around 15,000 crore, which is divided into two components, where we are talking about e-vehicles, right? Electronic vehicles. So the scheme is split in two ways. Firstly, whenever some people are buying the EVs, they will get some discounts. Second, we also are focusing not only on the consumer side. The government in Delhi is also focusing on the supply side and also the charging infrastructure plus taxation aspects. So taking into all of this consideration, we have 15,000 crore subsidy. And now, when we talk about what is the policy all about, so the new policy is very simple, is very simple, guys. Why? Because we are targeting whom? The two-wheelers, three-wheelers here. And we are actually, if you look at the incentive structure, for example, you are planning to get a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler EV, right? For example, three-wheeler EV can also become, electric rickshaws or various other public transportation aspects. So, for example, you are planning to buy one EV scooter, right? So right now, what the government is telling, in the first year, you will be getting more benefits if you buy the electric scooter in the first year of the scheme, when the scheme is announced. For example, if you're someone, or if I am buying in the next year after the scheme has been announced, I will be receiving a lesser subsidy. Now, all of you can tell that this is actually counterproductive in nature, right? Because if the government wants you to buy more EVs, why after some years they will be declining the incentive for you to buy? The same is the case with three-wheelers. Because the government understands one thing, guys, that whatever the decision of us to buy the EV is, it is actually quite uncertain, right? I am sure that you people have had some discussions with your family, with your friends, that whether you should buy an electric scooter or a petroleum scooter. I am sure that all of you or most of you have agreed that in India, maybe the charging infrastructure is not good, है ना? Also the after repair service is not good. The technology of EV is quite new. All of us being UPSC aspirants, we also know how China is actually very dominative in this respect. We also see the main details in the next slides, right? We also, for example, love selling our scooties and cars and buy some new electric vehicles, right? So what would be the resale value of the EVs? Because the battery inside the EVs, it is said, according to various research, that it degrades over a period of time, and the most costly affair of owning an electric vehicle is actually the battery replacement aspect, right? So you have all these things in consideration. So government of Delhi is also kind of compassionate for you all. So government of Delhi wants you to buy the EV vehicle in the first year of the government benefit itself, so that early adopters can actually get a larger discounts, right? Because as and when, definitely you have seen one thing, guys, that whenever we progress in our lives will get more better if we do much more hard work. Similarly, EVs will get better in the future because companies will do better research and development. Battery issues will be going down over the next few years, maybe because we are also launching so many battery manufacturing plants in India itself. So maybe over a period of time, the EV infrastructure can be better. And that is exactly why the government will be giving less benefits as time goes on. Right? So this is exactly what is the first component of the scheme, that purchase incentive tapers off over a period of time or reduces over a period of time. I hope this is clear. Now, next go to the next time, where we are actually getting scrapping benefits also. Now, vehicle scrapping means that, for example, the government definitely right now in 2026 do not want you to buy more petroleum or diesel vehicles, right? Because these are polluting in nature. In return, what we are actually encouraged to buy by the government? Electronic vehicles. So for example, you are someone who is very rich, right? And you have 2-3 petroleum cars. Now the government is giving you incentives, right? That means discounts on the MRP of the EV. So you are actually right now encouraged to buy the EV vehicle. So what will happen to your old 2-3 petroleum or diesel vehicles that you have to sell it. The government has told that, for example, if one of the vehicle is actually quite old, very old, and it is highly polluting in nature, you can actually get some money for that. For example, if you have a BS4, that is quite old, right? We have right now BS6 norms. So when you take your BS4 vehicle to the market and sell it, maybe you will not get a true price, or you will not get a very huge return on that particular sale. So government has told that, okay, this is a government rate, that if you bring in a two-wheeler BS4 vehicle, which was polluting in nature and which you should not use anymore because it will be harming the environment, so you will be getting 10,000 rupees scrapping initiative. So your vehicle will be sent to scrap, it will be dismantled, and those scraps will go into creation of new vehicles, maybe EV vehicles. So government has told that, okay, 10,000 rupees you will get. Similarly, three-wheeler vehicles will be getting 25,000 rebate. N1 trucks will be getting 50,000. So this means that even if you're bringing four-wheeler cars, so you're actually getting a incentive of around 10,000 to around 1 lakh rupees if you bring in your old vehicle. So this is part of a dual discounting structure. For example, firstly you are getting rebate in the first one. Secondly, you are also getting discount for your old vehicles, scrapping vehicles, right? So this means that, as of now, the government of Delhi is actually making all these kind of messages that governments generally used to give earlier, that please buy more EV, please try to consider more EV cars and scooties instead of buying a petrol or diesel variant. So earlier, the government used to persuade you. Right now, the government has actually moved on to making it a broader incentive, right? So this is where you find that, for example, when we talk about the three-wheelers and the N1 trucks, right? So only EV registrations will be permitted. Also, when we talk about the two-wheelers, only EV registrations are permitted. When we talk about the school buses, at least within 2 years of notification, this also will be applicable for them. And also, at least 10% of all the school bus fleet must be converted into EV. Look at more other details. Government of Delhi is also giving you 100% road tax and registration fee exemption. And this is a very huge thing, guys, because obviously if you buy a car or a vehicle or a two-wheeler, three-wheeler, apart from the price, you have to pay these taxes and fees, which are sometimes quite high, astronomical. So definitely if you're bringing these taxes down, you're bringing the price of the overall vehicle down. People can actually increase their demand then, because this is simple law of demand and supply. If you reduce the price, people will be actually demanding more, right? So this is what we are trying to understand. Also, it is important to be noted that more than 30 lakh rupees EV vehicles are exempted from this. So definitely we are trying to promote more mass made EVs here, so that more of the masses can afford those vehicles. Also, subsidies won't be given for the hybrid vehicles because we are making it 100% electric in nature. Hybrid vehicles still use petrol, right? So that is why. Also, infrastructure commitment has been done too. Remember, I told these are two components. Firstly, purchase components. Secondly, taxes and infrastructure. Because whenever you buy EV, right, one of the problems you remember, charging problem. So Delhi government is installing 32,000 charging points in the next 4 years using the Delhi government scheme and also the national scheme known as a PM E-Drive. So this is the central government scheme where the government will be giving money for actually transitioning to electronic buses, electronic ambulances, and obviously electronic four-wheeler vehicles and various other commercial trucks too. Right? So this will be the main ambition of the charging infrastructure. So we are trying to localize the charging infrastructure throughout the NCR region. And at the end of the day, we are also trying to phase out these CNG vehicles, right? For example, the autos and the various other CNG vehicles, these also shall be discontinued over a period of time. So, whatever we have learned as of now, if we zoom out a little bit, if we zoom out right now away from Delhi, if we try to install or try to replicate this same model in the other states of the country, don't you think it will be a good thing? Because at the end of the day, we have seen how this is a major central government scheme known as the PME drive. So apart from that, the government of India actually has various other EV schemes also, right? Some of you can actually let me know in the comments below what are the various other central government schemes of EV, because we have covered them in the previous analyst lectures also. Now, if we move away from Delhi and try to copy it in the other states of the country, it will be actually doing a quite good boon for India. Why? Because firstly, if you understand, Niti Aayog has set a goal of 30% EV penetration in the country across two-wheelers, across three-wheelers, passenger vehicles. So for example, Niti Aayog has given the target that all of the private cars in India must try to transition towards kind of green and EV vehicles. So the target by 2030 is 30%. It is 30% of the private cars. Then 70% of the commercial vehicles should transition to become EVs. 40% of the buses, 80% of the 2 and 3 wheelers, because these are generally the largest in numbers. And if you actually try to understand the cumulative pollution, for example, the pollution that we get in the form of oxides of sulfur, oxides of nitrogen, and also the secondary pollutants such as volatile organic carbon and the ground level ozone, which we also discussed in the Analyst previously. So these are secondary pollutants in nature, VOC, ground level pollution that we have in case of ozone. So this means that we can actually reduce this kind of pollutions. Going forward, if you see, Delhi is that region during winters which is heavily polluted. So that means that this is not only some recommendations by the Niti Aayog, this is the imperative that 2026 demands that we should be trying to reduce the vehicular pollution, reduce the vehicular emissions and the transportation emissions as a whole, because the other countries are doing this. China is doing that, Europe is doing that, USA is doing that. So why not we are actually taking concrete steps? Because actually India's EV growth, when we talk about pollution, it will be addressing the pollution issue. On the other hand, we are also talking about economics in nature, right? Because when we talk about the sales of electric vehicles, 80 million electric vehicles will require 1 crore EV cells annually, right, by 2030. And this can be scalable, because if you understand, when we talk about the electronic vehicles in the two-wheeler category, and the demand is only going to increase, and from the current level it is actually going to increase twice, right, by 2030. The same is the case with three-wheelers, passenger cars. So definitely if you see, the passenger cars have a less demand than the two-wheelers, simply because passenger cars are actually quite expensive than the two and the three-wheelers. So this is why the nature of the graph is like this. But across these three categories we see that the sales are only going to increase by 2030. Right? Again, if we kind of zoom out away from Delhi and try to understand what is the current status quo, what is the current status of our India's EV strategy, because India is actually actively, based on the central government commitments, we are trying to actively pursue these EV targets. Firstly, we have the Paris Agreement targets that we should not breaching the pre-industrial level rise in temperatures, right, by 2050 and by 2100 when we talk about the world level, right? India has set the target that we will become net zero by 2070. So this is where we understand the Panchamrit targets, which you can also mention the rest of them in the comments below. Those must be adhered to. That is why we have actually so many EV policies in the country. For example, the PM E-Drive scheme. State level competition is there when we talk about the EV subsidies. Delhi government you have just seen right now. Similarly, Maharashtra government is also right now giving you various incentives to buy the electric vehicles. Gujarat, Jharkhand, Tamil Nadu, almost all the states are actually catching up. But Delhi model is so far by actually the best one, because they are giving you incentives, they are also giving you tax discounts and charging infrastructure. Also, when we look away from India right now, we understand that electric vehicle market and the overall supply chain is actually quite complicated. Firstly, because we understand India is more than around 90% dependent on the Strait of Hormuz for majority of the energy security needs, right? We have seen during the crisis of Iran and Israel and US how the petroleum prices and everything were affected. So if we transition towards EV, it will be only good for us. But at the end of the day, India is still dependent on our energy supplies on this region. On the other hand, we also have the AI race going on, right? We have also seen how recently the prices of memory cards, RAM, even tablets, laptop, even right now, Apple has increased the prices, right, of its products. Why they are increasing it? Because most of the semiconductors are actually being used in AI data centers rather than being used in normal appliances and EVs. Right? On the other hand, the manufacturing supply chain is also kind of scattered across the country. So when we talk about the issues, you can actually mention this kind of issues, right? So the supply chain is concentrated in various parts of the country. It is not actually the supply chain which is operating in almost all of the states. Also, the battery problem is there, because For example, in India, we have a scheme, government scheme known as a PLI scheme, the production linked incentive, when we talk about the advanced cell chemistry. So advanced cell chemistry is actually indirectly also promoting the battery manufacturing capabilities in India. So far, we have seen Ola, Hyundai, and various other commercial vehicle giants and various other startups actually taking the benefit of this scheme and setting up the chemical plants in India to manufacture the EV batteries. But recently Hyundai has pulled out from the scheme in various sectors, and also we see that the implementation on the ground level is not proper. Also, at the end of the day, China, when we talk about the manufacturing supply chain, if you look at this figure itself, in 2022 China was at 77%. Right now China is actually at around 70%, but China's capabilities have actually increased way more, right? So it means that China as one country is controlling more than half, and even more than half, when we talk about the battery manufacturing, EV manufacturing, and various other sectors also, right? And definitely when we talk about a recent report, which is by the name of JMK research report, please do cite this in your answers. The localization problem is a very big problem, because when we talk about the EV manufacturing in India, it is not concentrated in some areas, right? It is where we are actually dependent on China for the various raw materials, right? So we have to localize the sources of raw materials if we want to become a giant in EV production internationally too. Because on the other hand, rare earth are various critical minerals which also go into the manufacturing of various electronic items, including EV. This is where China is having dominance, if you see here in this map. So that is why simultaneously government of India always is proactive in nature. So whenever there is a challenge like this, for example, if India is wanted to transitioning towards EVs, so definitely this is a major challenge, and the government of India has a solution to this challenge also. That means that we recently also launched a 7,280 crore scheme to make India a global hub for rare earth permanent magnets, right? So over 7 years, we will be trying to manufacture various magnets which are actually important for EV production, battery manufacturing, charging infrastructure, etc. So starting from the Delhi pollution, we have moved actually discussing the issues in India's EV policy and how we can actually understand the details of the Delhi policy, how they can be replicated as a model to be followed in other states. So let us understand what can be the way forward here. Firstly, when we talk about the FAME 2, which was actually a precursor towards the PM E-Drive scheme, I mean, the earlier name of PME drive was actually FAME 2 and FAME 3, right? All those components. So these were the old government schemes. And that scheme was actually quite successful because it led to 9x demand in the commercial electronic vehicles. So we can learn some lessons from the previous government scheme, right? For example, here, to take this commercial success even more to the next level, this two-wheeler, three-wheeler incentives must be given by the state governments in increasing amounts, and the central government can actually guide the overall national policy. Also, we can also learn from the Delhi government's promise to actually deliver 8 lakh diesel cars and converted them into the electric vehicles. We can also replicate them in the various other state governments. Also, if you look at this picture here, you may have seen this in your town or your city, that various Rapido and Ola and Uber riders, the various persons who deliver your orders there online, they, whenever they use EVs, they take out the batteries here and plug it on a wall. This wall is consisted of various battery charging infrastructure. So we can have this even more. If you go out in Delhi, you will notice that this is quite common nowadays to be seen. But when we talk about the tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, this is not that common. And that is why the hesitancy is also there. For example, in this latest announcement, Gurgaon, when we look at the status here, they do not have a proper EV adoption because around 2%, 3% people have electric vehicles because of the charging infrastructure issues. So we can actually take hold of this battery leasing operation where this will be provided by various private companies. We can go there and charge our batteries. We can also have our battery Aadhaar, because at the end of the day, everything around EVs kind of, in my opinion, revolves around the battery debate. Because the battery is something which is exhaustive in nature, and if battery goes down, Yeah, it is almost as good if you buy a new electric vehicle, right? So battery must be taken care of. Recycling opportunity is also quite good, because sometimes if the battery is destroyed or there are some other issues in the EV, we can actually try to transform them into wealth, because waste to wealth is a major government slogan. For example, 92,000 tons of end of life lithium ion battery waste can be generated by 2030, and this recycling market in India can touch $10 billion by 2030. So it is a good business opportunity also, which can actually lead to better production, better technology, which can also increase consumer demand in the future, which can actually lead to better technology upgradation, cost reduction, and over a period of time better attitude towards consumers' demand for EVs, which can be replicated on a national wide model. So I guess this was all for this one. Now it is time for all of you to write a mains answer of this question, and now we will move into the next topic, which is a very interesting article in the Hindu, which is actually written by a currently serving IAS officer by the name of Shrivast Krishna. Now he has written a very bold idea. The bold idea is that, for example, whenever we go to ChatGPT or Claude, we see that after some responses, the AI starts or stops working entirely. So there is a limit of AI generation, and that is actually where we use a lot of AI tokens. For example, if you have a free account, maybe you can actually generate only 10 responses by the AI. And after that, you have to wait for 4 hours again or 5 hours again to get your tokens refreshed. Now, if you have a pro account, you have seen how these tokens are actually, say, a little bit more extended in your case, because you're paying money for that. Now, whenever we are paying money, that means that AI sometimes can get outside our affordability. Sometimes we cannot afford those subscriptions. For example, if you take example of Claude AI, which you should definitely use in your UPSC preparation. But the problem with Claude AI, the free tier is actually quite low. Those who agree with me can let me know. So the biggest issue with AI right now, generative AI and the various other LLMs that we have, is that these are quite expensive in nature. And on the other hand, you have seen that how AI can be so important in healthcare, in universities, in biotechnology, or in space technology, in military, in governance. So definitely, if we try to liberate AI and make it more affordable, it can actually create and unlock a lot of economic value for the entire country, right? So the author is actually starting this article with a very good heading, that India must actually move from Hindu rate of growth to Bharat rate of growth. That means that we have to break away from the shackles of the past and try to move towards a brighter future using better technology and using government's hand or government's helping hand in making that technology much more accessible for those people who are working for nation development. For example, you all have must read Indian history, right? And for example, when you are reading that NCERT chapter where it is talking about India's economy at independence, we have seen that from independence to around 1980s, our economic growth kind of stagnated at a particular rate, that is around 3.5 to 4% annually. So you can actually imagine that right now in newspapers we hear that the RBI has revised the GDP forecast to 6.6%, that the IMF has revised India's GDP expectation to 6.3%. These are the headlines, right? So imagine back then we were increasing at a very slow rate, because obviously we had public means of production. For example, in the second 5-year plan, the government of India thought that it will be good that if the government savings are used for investments in heavy industries. So heavy industries like vehicle industries, steel manufacturing plants, or whatever you can imagine those big industries are. So the government took the majority control over them, because the government thought that if we can follow the Harrod Domer model, which says that if we increase our savings and put them into investments like these heavy industries, this can create more jobs and opportunities for the people. But the plan that the government of India did is that we did it in a state ownership model, that the government of India actually owned the various companies and they did all the production, which are right now known as the PSUs, right, or central public sector enterprises. So back then the CPSEs or the PSUs generally used to do most of the production, but the government should never have business to do business, as also which is told by our current Prime Minister, because the government is consisted of bureaucrats, politicians. They are not business people, they are not entrepreneurs. So we must try to liberalize the economy. So this is what we did in 1990s, and look at the growth rate right now. We have actually unlocked the growth rate with what, with a change of mindset. That means the previous mindset is not working. Hindu rate of growth, while I do not agree with the term Hindu rate of growth, because it should not delineate only a particular community for this purpose, because we were a country, so we can tell that it was actually a very abysmal and a slow rate of growth that India was facing back then, right? So from that, we unlock the growth that we are receiving right now. But if you look at right now, we are also kind of, locked in the current stage because of the various crises which is taking place and the various infrastructure, or say the structural issues that India has. So India, should be needing a new moment of realization. So that is exactly what we are talking about in this article. So the main idea of the author here, who is an IS officer also, so he is also involved in policy making, so you can use his advices too. So the author's main gamble is that, why not India gamble and try to give more AI tokens, which should be given either free of cost or at very low prices to the most important sectors, such as AI researchers or university professors or industries or startups or various other stakeholders who are doing AI development. So tokens are, the basic raw material when we talk about AI infrastructure as a whole, because whenever you have tokens, then only you can generate various kind of characters. So according to the author, if we kind of democratize and decentralize the tokens, make it free or affordable to most of the Indian population who is doing productive work, we can unlock 8% growth for a decade. And that is where we can actually realize the goal of $5 trillion economy, even $10 trillion economy, right, in the future, according to our Prime Minister's aspirations also. So this can be actually quite good, because when we talk about the main research and development spend in the country, this is actually quite low, which was also covered in the recent analysis section also. You can let me know what are the major issues that India is facing in the R&D sector, because whenever we talk about the money that we spend as a proportionate to GDP on research, it is only 0.65%, far below China, US, Israel and other countries. Also, the cost that this idea is going to take of giving free tokens to around 100 top universities such as IITs, such as IIMs, NITs and some private universities, also to various government schools and private schools in the country. So it can cost to India around 0.06% of our GDP, which is, around 1/14th of the food subsidy bill. For example, the National Food Security Act, recently also I covered that. Also the fertilizer subsidy, it is around 1/10th of the cost. So for example, if we try to empower with free AI tokens to those researchers, schools, universities and colleges, so they will actually create more value. More value can be unlocked with a small number. This is the main idea. Just try to realize this firstly, because this is one bold idea that he is proposing. He is also telling this is not the very first bold idea that India has proposed. India in the past has went with a nationwide campaign to enlist everyone on the Aadhaar card infrastructure. You remember back in 2009 or 10 maybe, if you can remember, you can let me know, when this Aadhaar card infrastructure was first launched, we used to go to our schools, nearby schools and get our face scanned, finger face scanned for the first time. That was, a very, very big gamble, because back then India did not know whether this Aadhaar card, say biometric feature is going to work out in the future or not. But at the end, fast forward 20 years almost right now, you see how this Aadhaar card is benefiting the country. When we talk about farmers, when we talk about banks, when we talk about various other government schemes, Aadhaar card beneficiaries are actually used. It is right now indispensable in India. And it was actually quite an Indian effort too. Can anyone tell me who actually proposed Aadhaar ecosystem for the first time? Also, the same case with UPI happened. I need not explain anything about UPI here because every one of us, even when we are living in the remotest part of our country, right, definitely knows about UPI, if not use UPI, right? So gone is the time when we used to carry cash in our wallets. Right now we only keep our phones. For example, I to do that. I do not, have that courage to take out my wallets anymore because I think that it can be stolen. But UPI, even if you look at the recent data of the last year, see how big volumes of transactions we are having over a period of time. Also, the geo revolution, the famous geo revolution, which took place, in 2016-17, totally transformed the data scenario in our country. Data became very, very affordable. In fact, in India, as of now I'm speaking, data is the most affordable in India. So the data price made, financial inclusion much more better. Data combined with, low data price combined with UPI plus Aadhaar and unlocked, the technological stack that India has developed over a period of time. And right now, what we are doing? We are trying to export our expertise in this digital public infrastructure to other countries such as, our neighboring countries and various other countries. So in the comment section, you can let me know we can use UPI in which of the countries in the world. And there are some European countries too, which actually helps the transaction using UPI even better, mainly for the Indian tourists visiting abroad. They can actually pay using UPI there. Even majority of the Gulf countries are doing that. Even many African countries are coming in India and learning how we scaled up the Aadhaar ecosystem so that they can try to emulate this and apply this in their country. Right? So this is what we are talking about, guys. This is what we are talking about, that India actually did this kind of transformative things before. It definitely led to digitized economy, UPI, Aadhaar card, geo data, and various other services also. Airtel, Vodafone, they also make their data affordable. So this unlocked digitization. This unlocked various people signing up for more bank account, digital bank accounts, taking benefit of various government schemes online. So a lot of benefits that we have already taken. Now, India, is actually one of the few countries to also do the same in this aspect too, such as India AI mission. The mission and the idea is extremely simple. What the government of India is doing, it is partnering with various major technological companies which supply the GPUs, the graphical processing units, the graphics card as we popularly known as, that you can use to play the GTA 6 which is coming up, right? So government of India came up with India AI mission even before GTA 6 release. This is a very major deal because this is not a simple government initiative. Simple government initiative is this, where we are partnering with NVIDIA or AMD or with various other companies which manufacture GPUs, mainly with NVIDIA, and we will take the GPUs from them as the government. We will buy as a government and we will distribute those GPUs either free of cost or at discounted cost to the various companies in India, to the startups in India, to the colleges in India, to the schools in India, so that this AI infrastructure can be built from ground up in India itself. So that we need not take Claude subscriptions or ChatGPT subscriptions 10 years from now on. So that some AI startup in India, such as Sarvam startup, I will show you later also, how they are scaling up the AI system using the benefit of this India AI mission, right? So that is where we are actually having two components of this mission. The India AI compute capacity to build scalable AI computing ecosystem. This is where we are actually making, the cost of AI very, very affordable for researchers, for other people who are doing AI research. Also, India AI Innovation Center. And this is where this will go on to bring in various LLMs for India itself, right? So if we have India-based LLM, it will be good for us itself. On the other hand, we have also India AI Dataset Center and platform so that we can actually get Indian relevant data to train our Indian AI data centers. Right? India AI Application Development Initiative, India Future Skills to give more skills of AI to the undergraduate, masters, PhD programs. Startup financing is also being done under this mission. And ethics and frameworks development of AI is also followed under this mission. And if we take a reality check as to what is the main trajectory of this AI mission as of now, for example, early in the mission, according to the minister who announced this mission, India was using almost around 18 to 19,000 GPUs. We were actually using 9x more times than Chinese AI model DeepSeek. Back then, when this AI mission was launched, at that time only, we were using more GPUs than China. We were using 2/3 of Chat GPT's GPUs, but still we are not able to come up with a good outcome. Also, in March 2026, we got to increase our GPUs to 34,000, and the more GPUs you have, the better AI research and better AI data processing you can do. And the main target by the end of 2026 is 1 lakh GPUs, right? And this is where we also, in February 2026, recently, we also signed additional deals with NVIDIA to have more of their new and latest AI enabled GPUs, right? And also throughout this India AI mission itself, throughout these massive GPUs that we have, already we have reduced the cost of AI to around 115 to 150 per GPU hour. A very, very important fact for your mains answer. Because if you want to talk about how AI is affordable, this is the main data. So AI is actually becoming quite affordable because this price in India is 42% below the market rates in the entire world. So in India also, like geo data or like any other telecom data, AI is actually also below market rates. This is good for us. And that is why with more funding, more discounts, we can take it to more affordable level, because that can be done by the government of India. And that also is kind of taken up by various private companies such as Sarvam AI, right? For example, India government recently gave 220 crore access of NVIDIA GPUs to our private startup companies, because this is right now a direct and legitimate claim that India is right now taking on the AI mission itself. For example, Sarvam 30B, Sarvam 10005B, these are actually, kind of giving more impetus to localized and domestic AI development rather than depending on the foreign models. So you can get the picture very, very clearly right now. Even on the other hand, the state governments such as Tamil Nadu are setting up the Sovereign AI Research Park, which is 10,000 crore worth. So a state government is also spending 10,000 crore money. Odisha has recently signed $2.3 billion of memorandum of understanding when we talk about scaling up AI infrastructure there. Also, it has taken up various other incentives to set up semiconductor park, because Odisha wants to become a technology-led economy in the future. So that is where we understand that many things are already happening right now. Even when we look at the central government of India initiatives, firstly, we have the India AI compute pillar. Remember that in this aspect. In this aspect, if you see, this is a compute pillar. This is a component where, according to this mission, we are trying to make AI very, very cheap to 65 rupees per hour to researchers and developers, so that they can use the AI research and break the innovation barriers using AI. Because definitely all of us has used AI. We understand how innovatively we can actually use it using various prompts, using agent automation and various other aspects, right? Also, on the other hand, we have a dataset platform such as AI Course. AI Course has various sectoral data. For example, when we take about the agriculture data, so what will this dataset have? For example, if you are a startup which will create new solutions, say in predicting the weather for a particular crop in the state of UP. So your startup is developing this idea that I will accurately predict weather so that farmers can do better crop cultivation in some areas of UP, right? So you are a startup here, you have access to government's AI course, because government has made the data set, the data generation much more easier, so that you can get what? The crop survey data, agricultural capital formation, of the money that the government is spending or the private people are spending, ICAR, which is leading in agricultural research, and what is the latest technology that we have. What are the farmers that are calling the call centers and what are their main problems, so that you as a business can solve that problem, right? What is the daily market price? So what we are doing, we are actually using AI as a startup company to solve the local level problems. So this is the main benefit of the AI course. Also, on the other hand, AI startup funding is also increasing in India. Also, Yuva AI for All, or Yuv AI, is actually a skilling platform where this is actually included right now under National Education Policy 2020, so that AI can be taught at the school level itself from class 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11, 12. Definitely children will learn more about AI, about prompts, about various models, what is LLM, just like we are actually learning right now. And also at the end of the day, digital government mission, and also the government aspiration to have their own model of regional languages and various other LLM aspects. Government of India is also setting up various centers of excellence. So these are the aspirations that we are living for actually being very, very optimistic. According to the author, we should be taking the new leap forward right now, because according to the author, one issue is there in India, and that is why we should be following the way forward to this. One issue is that, we have a lot of GPUs in the country, but we are not able to use it. For example, Sarvam is also not able to go beyond a particular limit, right? Because we also do not have the other technologies in this particular aspect. So government needs to fund even more in that particular aspect. Also, when we talk about the data sets, data set quality has a problem. The data quality is not good in our country. So we have to improve that. And here we need to fund more startups to take this forward. Also, India is actually building sovereign AI faster than we are actually needing the institutions. For example, that for each and every sector in our country, we need a government institution or a regulator to control it. For example, for food sector, don't we have the FSSAI to regulate the food delivery systems or the restaurants or the food quality standards? So for AI, we do not have any single national level AI audit center as to whether this AI development is taking in a good pace or not, whether we have the capacity or not. So this is what we should be having right now. Maybe a legal body to audit the AI pace in the country. Also, the author has recommended that we should not be dependent only on one company such as NVIDIA. We should be going for Google, for AWS, Amazon or AMD. We should be partnering with them in this 40-30-30 ratio. 40 for Amazon, 30 for AMD, Google and NVIDIA, right? And at the end of the day, the state governments, the regional administration, the district administration, the district magistrates, which all of you will be coming in the future, all of you should be using AI and trying to make these AI tokens more democratic and decentralized for the local people at the end of the day, right? Because tokens are the gateway to AI. Make it affordable and spread this awareness to the people, implement these missions well. So definitely things can improve, just like UPI Aadhaar and the data decentralization that we did. So this was all for this one. Practice this question again. Now we'll be moving on to the mains value addition section, where, as always, that these kind of articles help you write excellent answers. For example, recently, Haryana, Rajasthan recently signed the agreement to implement the Yamuna water agreement, because previously, they had a different kind of agreement in the 1994 year. But that agreement was highly legal in nature with a lot of loopholes, so that was not working out. So right now, these two states have come together by the spirit of cooperative federalism. This is where the states do not fight against each other. They cooperate with each other to grow. So this is a very good example if you want to cite as example in your mains answers related to cooperative federalism, or those areas where the states are cooperating in each other. Or if you want to write some recommendations, you can cite that we must be following the model of these two states, where according to GS1 also you can include this, where this is solving the solution for the arid districts which are water stressed in Rajasthan, such as Charu, Sikar and Jhunjhunu, right? So this is one example that you can use for resource sharing, because this is the water resource that we are sharing. Also for GS3, we can actually propose in the topic of infrastructure that this model is trying to include one very important and new engineering marvel, that we are trying to have an underground water pipeline Remember this, underground water pipeline, not over the ground. So from the Hathini Kund barrage, we will be having an underwater pipeline connection which can actually be much more safer, and it can be implemented better because for irrigation it can be used, so that it can also fight the issue of climate change. Now, the next is regarding the PM Family Care Tracker, a very important scheme which has been launched, which will be in the form of digital health passport, and it is a family centric model. Why? Because it will be giving you a real time tracking of various Anganwadis, schools, birth and death registries when we talk about the maternal and infant mortality rates, so that we can actually adopt a very, very important term known as life cycle approach to health, so that we are tracking the birth of a child, right, of a girl child, then that girl child maybe, for example, is growing up to be a a teenager, then a woman, and finally an elderly citizen. So we can actually have a life cycle approach if we follow this kind of portal. A very, very good kind of example you can give in your GS2 e-governance initiative, because this is an online portal and we can get real-time tracking in this particular respect. Now moving on to the final means value addition, where the industrial output has actually hit a 5-month high of 5.1%, because the manufacturing sector, electricity, water supply, sewerage, waste management actually has increased when we talk about the manufacturing growth. So it is actually quite good for India, right? Because on a manufacturing level, we are increasing the growth according to the IIP. In the comment section, you let me know who releases the IIP and what is the recent base year of the IIP. And the IIP is a very, very important manufacturing indicator, and you have mains exam coming up in the next few months. So if you quote the latest month data, that will be more than enough if you want to write answers on manufacturing progress or status or challenges in India. So that was all for mains value addition. Now let us start with the prelims pointers. Well, the first article is actually on which are the recent regulations which RBI changed to reduce the menace of digital arrests. You all know that there are these people who claim that they are from CBI or various crime branch, and some of your gold or some illegal drugs are trapped at railways or airports, and you have to come to kind of take those consignments and pay penalties or go to prison, or you can pay some bribes to them. So these are all complex scams which are going on, right? And according to recent RTI data, around 3,207 crore were lost because of around more than 5.8 lakh cases regarding cyber fraud in the 2020 to 2024 time. According to NCRB 2022 report, the loss was around at 1.25 trillion rupees. And mainly the vulnerable individuals such as students, housewives, elderly, and various other sections, mainly from the rural areas, are targeted, right? And that is how, if you can see the trend of cyber fraud in the case of banking transaction, it is a spiking like anything, right? And also if you see the various states, Maharashtra is accounting for more than 1/4 of the total cases of cyber fraud, and you can get this kind of charts everywhere. So that is why the RBI came up with a compensation program. For example, you have lost some money, may God forbid, to this kind of criminals. So in this case, the RBI is giving you some relief. Now, here the eligibility cap is that whatever scam amount that a person has been scammed by, right, must be less than 50,000, and up to 85% of a maximum of 25,000 can be given to a person when we talk about the total scammed amount, right? If a person is losing money in this kind of cyber frauds, so a person can actually get a maximum compensation of 25,000 rupees, subject to around 85% of the payout. Now, also, who will be giving this compensation back to the victim? It will be RBI 75%, and also the victim banks and the scammers bank. Both of them will be contributing the rest 25%. And also when we talk about the claim of the victim, the banks will be actually verifying the claims. As if the claims are false or not, right? So there are various false cases where sometimes the people actually go to the police that they have been scammed, but they are not. So police and the various other authorities, mainly the banks, will be verifying the matter, right? And also, if there was some kind of information on the email, on the SMS, on the various other scam and fraud say messages, that this message can be fraud, right? If you have seen various emails that you get, suspicious email, sometimes Google tell you that this email can be fraud. Sometimes your bank and RBI also tells you that this is a suspicious link, do not open it. So even after you open it and you have been scammed, then you will not get the compensation. So you have to be very careful regarding this. This is what the RBI is talking about. And if at all there are some websites which do not warn you and everything, then you will be getting the amount. Also, if your contact details are outdated, your email ID is not there, your phone cannot be reached because you have deactivated your SIM card, then also you won't be able to claim compensation. So you must have updated contact information. And once someone has been scammed, that person can get 5-day maximum time to complain to the 1930 number, which is a national cyber protection number. And also the bank settlement has a deadline. For domestic transaction it is 45 days, and for international transaction it is around 60 days. And finally, in various cases, the customers can also be granted the liability to prove themselves. So in cases of elderlies and various other marginalized sections, they can actually take the help of Indian Contracts Act and give relief under the same. So this was all for the one, and let's move on to the next one, where we will actually understand why recently the heating up of Europe is a very, very big concern. Because if you can actually look into the recent data, it shows that 45% of around 854 prominent cities in Europe, and the time between June 18th and 30th, as of now we are on 30th. If you see at the map, these are all those areas which are seeing record-breaking heat, right? So this dark pink dots, if you can see, these are the record-breaking heat that is going on. And also in just 2 weeks, during the last month of May, Europe became much more hotter over a period of time. If you can see the increase in temperature, right, after a transition from winter month to a summer month has been drastically at the tune of around 8 degree temperature increase or more than that. Right? And also the average surface air temperature suddenly become hotter than the entire historical average for Europe. And this is actually a very concerning thing, firstly because this is a wrong month where these heat conditions are actually seen. This should be seen much more later, maybe in July or in August, and maybe not even seen, because Europe historically has been quite cooler over a period of time. Because in the last month of May, if you can see, the same month around 10 days before, right? If you see, it was actually quite cool. That means the heat wave came suddenly. And you know, heat wave is actually a condition when you have high surface temperatures. And researchers are telling that the main thing is regarding the greenhouse effect, greenhouse warming, right? Because most of the pollutants, when we talk about the greenhouse gases, are being trapped in the atmosphere. And these are trapping even more heat over a period of time. So that is actually one of the reasons why this has become the third intense heat wave in the last 5 years, resulting in maybe possibly in more deaths of around 1 lakh people. This is quite severe, and this is where, you know, World Weather Attribution is an, you know, climate research organization which released a study as of now. According to the report this article is written, that climate change actually is one of the main reasons, because they gave a very scientific model known as climate attribution science, which you can also use as value addition in your GS3 conservation answer. It is telling you, think of 2 worlds, world number 1 or A and world B, or Earth A, Earth B. Earth A has climate change, Earth B does not have climate change. So just imagine that in the Earth B, there is no Europe which is becoming hotter in 2026. So these are actually complex AI simulation models that this organization has done, and they have seen that this human-led warming, anthropogenic warming, is leading to this kind of deaths and heat wave. So maybe one of the first scientific evidence of climate change that we are observing. So this is a very, very big thing. Also, researchers are kind of not denying the fact that this year we have the super El Nino, and maybe El Nino is actually contributing to this. Also, this climate attribution science and the AI model is telling that even if we do not have a super El Nino this year, still then the Europe would have been hotter like this, right? And this is actually a pattern of long-term warming instead of short-term El Nino and various other localized phenomena or a global weather phenomena. We are actually seeing something which we know as long-term warming. So it is expected that in the future we will actually see much more warmer days and nights. Now when we talk about nights and days, generally in Europe during this month we generally have normal temperatures. Like for example, in the day we have 25 degrees, night 14 degrees, but during a heat wave right now, day is at 40 degrees, night is at 30 degrees. And you know, not everything is actually only attributed to climate change, because sometimes when we talk about the heat stress in Europe, we actually have to talk about the growing and the aging population of Europe. Look at Monaco, look at the various other European countries such as Italy, Portugal, Greece, Finland, and various other countries if you can see. Here, most of the population is actually quite older, and elderly populations, you know, suffer more from heat stress, and that is why more people are dying off right now, because historically Europe has been a cool continent, and the home designs in Europe is actually done in such a way that it traps more heat because it is a cool continent, right? So we are needing homes that can trap heat inside, so that homes can be naturally be warm. So in heat, just imagine those warm houses becoming more warm right now. They also have fewer air conditions. So this means that sometimes architecture is also due to. So this means sometimes you have to also blame architecture rather than only climate change, because all of these are transforming Europe into urban heat island effect, where heat is being trapped by the concrete is releasing heat, and due to global warming and the greenhouse gas effect, we are trapping more heat itself, and especially during night the condition is becoming unbearable. So this was actually all for this. Now we will move on to the next one, where we will see recently how the Union Cabinet has launched the NIIF 2.0 fund, the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund 2.0. Firstly, understand what is 1.0. This is actually, you know, India's one of the biggest infrastructural investment engine. Because we know we need better schools, colleges, bridges, hospitals, airports, ports. These are all part of our infrastructure. So in 2015, we created this sovereign anchored investment fund. It means that government is contributing 49%. Rest of the money is coming from pension funds, you know, even LIC can contribute to it, multilateral institutions, domestic financial institutions such as banks, and someone who is known as sovereign wealth funds, such as Singapore or UAE. You know, these are countries sometimes who have created their own funds, and these funds goes to various other countries and invest in either private companies or government projects. So imagine this, Singapore Wealth Fund, owned by the Singaporean government, coming into India and investing in our bridges and various other infrastructure itself in India. So it can actually lead to more money which can come into India via various modes, right? So this is exactly what we mean by National Infrastructure Investment Fund. Some of you can also ask me that if various other governments are coming as sovereign wealth funds, what is the profit for them? You know, whenever, for example, we are building a road here, so maybe the Singapore government came and invested here. So definitely when the road will be completed, we will be generating tolls, right? So the toll money will be given to the Singaporean government. And also, how will this NIIF work in real life? Government money will be there. Currently, we have already spent around 40,000 crore rupees, and this is actually transforming in India in various other ways. Despite there are some issues in the implementation, but we are actually going quite thorough, and the implementation in various states also have to be monitored. But at the end of the day, how it will create investment is that, for example, majority of the global multilateral institution, pension funds, sovereign funds from other countries will come into India, and it will generate returns for them. It will be attracting more investments, and more investors, more funds will be there. Investment in infrastructure will increase for India. India can unlock that $5 trillion economic goal very, very soon. And this is, a feedback loop which has been started by the government of India, because it has contributed to around 49% of the money, right? So this makes sense because government is the first mover and government is leading the example by investment and others are following. So this is actually, that is why known as sovereign anchored fund, right? And it will attract a lot of domestic and international equity. So that is why, the new 30,000 crore fund has been created by the name of NIIF Infrastructure Fund 2. This is the next fund, target of around 30,000 crore, and the main focus area will be transportation network, energy, power, digital infrastructure, and also urban infrastructure and electric mobility. We have just seen the Delhi government that we have actually tried to transform the electric vehicle policy. And also we will be supporting global and strategic funds, and this money can be used as the first kind of money that is known as seed money to be started or to be used in various infrastructural projects. So that again, if the government is supporting and giving more money, obviously more global investors will come. They will be assured of good returns in our infrastructure in the form of tolls, fees, and various other charges and profits. We can actually create bigger platforms of investment, and long-term projects can be financed in this way. And on a side way, for your prelims preparation, it is also important to know which are the actually countries with the largest sovereign wealth funds. Norway is there, China is there, right? We also have another investment fund from China, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait, right? And various other countries are there. If you see, India is not there because India is not actually actively investing in various other countries, but we should also do that. We should also invest in various other countries, especially up and coming countries from Latin America and Africa itself. So you can actually give this as GS3 recommendations to actually make Indian economy and the investments that the government can get, and also the returns that the government of India can generate from international investments. But so far, this is what NIIF 2.0 was all about. Now let us move on to the last article of the day, where we will be looking into a recent report of the Project Cheetah. This is a very, very important article because the Project Cheetah was perhaps one of the largest conservational efforts that the Indian government has taken in the 2020s decade. So firstly, let us know a little bit about what happened with the cheetah situation in the country. When India became independent, and also before that, the Maharajas of India used to hunt cheetahs. And they used to hunt so much that they became extinct. And this is where there was various debates in the country that if cheetah was naturally present in India, right? We had the Indian cheetah that is extinct. Why cannot we bring the African cheetah or the Asiatic cheetah? African cheetah from definitely various parts of Africa, and Asiatic cheetah from Iran, right? It is also very critically endangered. So why can't we bring the world's fastest animal back to India on Indian soils? So we did that in 2 batches, 8 from Namibia and 12 from South Africa in 2022-23 respectively. The recent batch also arrived in February 2026. So we have actually a good functional amount of cheetah population. So we are generally sourcing from these 3 countries in southern part of Africa, and this is where we are trying to have the cheetah ecosystem and conservation system being developed in the country, because it is actually a very, very important animal when we talk about conservation of the local, say, ecosystem too. So this is why time and again there are so many reports and research which goes on regarding them. So as of now, we are turning our eyes to the Kuno National Park. Kuno National Park is in Madhya Pradesh, if you see, right? So here we actually brought the cheetahs, and we are getting that the cheetahs has their prey base, right? They actually feed on some animals. So they are feeding, as of now in India, these cheetahs, 42% on cheetal, which is a spotted deer, 30% on goat, cattle, and nilgai. So domestic livestock is getting to be around 50% of the kills of the cheetahs, right? And there are other rare animals also which the cheetahs are killing. But the thing is that cheetah as of now, maybe according to various experts who are telling, not completely naturalized in India. Because cheetahs do not have goats and cattle and those domestic animals, right? They hunt deers, they hunt various other buffaloes in wild, right? This is where the hunting skills also come up. So maybe as of now, what's on the menu is actually decided by the conservationist, the government wildlife, say, agencies, right? Why not we are actually making them self-dependent and independent, right? Because the low prey base is there in the Kuno National Park. There are not enough deers or various other animals which the cheetah can actually hunt, right? Also, livestock are much more easier near the villages. So cheetah also come into conflict sometimes, maybe, right? In the future, there can be issues with more bigger conflict, right? And this is where we have to understand that we have to diversify their prey base, right? Also, that is why there are talks right now to shift more and more cheetah to Sanjay Gandhi Sanctuary. This is the Sanjay Gandhi Sanctuary in this part of Madhya Pradesh, if you can see, in the northwestern part of Madhya Pradesh. So this is where we can diversify right now. Because what the cheetahs are eating, what's on the menu, is actually quite limited when you talk about the prey base. So let us diversify outside. Now, at the end, we have some prelims pointers for the Kuno National Park. Right, so Kuno National Park is actually located in the Shiopur district. The Kuno River is actually running through, hence the name of the park. It bisects into two, where the main vegetation is actually Shiopur, Shivpuri dry deciduous open forests. Right, so I guess this was all for today. I thank you all for being a very patient audience. Please do attempt the quiz which is coming up. Until we meet again, all the best and best of luck. Thank you.